Giving the performance is the job of both the animator and the director. I think there are only a few important things to say about directing, but we've got to know those. The director's job is to hold everything together so that the animator can give the performance. I've got three rules only for directing. Rule 1 is be clear. Everything should be absolutely clear to the viewer. Rule 2 is be clear. And rule 3 is be clear. And that's kind of it that's the job. Make everything clear. Have everything displayed clearly to the audience. No ambivalence, no doubt. Okay? Now, after that, the other thing that is sacrosanct is the brief. Like a lawyer's brief. What do they want? You know, what does the client want? If the man who has the gold makes the rules, golden rule, what does he want? What is the brief? On the Christmas Carol, Chuck Jones got me the job from New York and said, I want it like 1850s illustrations. And I said, please, can we get away? We've just done the Light Brigade. He said, I know, that's why you're getting this job, because I've shown these people with the money and they know you can do it. And I said, but I don't want to do it. Why can't you let me design it like my way? And he said, I don't want it. I want, your way doing 1850s illustration. That is the brief, right? So we got the 1850s illustrations out and followed them. That's the brief. The brief on Roger Rabbit, for example, was this. We want them to look like Warner characters. We want them to move like Disney characters. And we want Tex Avery humor, but not as wild and brutal. Halfway. And that was the brief. That was it. And we want them to look like 1940 characters. So I made them look like 1940 characters. I did a ton of research and then did the job. I'll come back to that, actually, research. So the brief is sacrosanct. If they want rubber ducks with don't take the job if you don't want to do it. I wanted to do it in the end. So I became a 1940s animator, or a fashion artist, or I don't know what, Ronald Searle, whatever you want. So the brief is sacrosanct. Don't take the money. I learned in advertising, when in doubt, when you're trying to draw the character for the film, if they haven't got it designed, I just draw the client. And they say, oh, I like that. Or the client's wife, if she was around, or girlfriend, or boyfriend, whatever it was. So that's the brief, isn't it? You're working for them. Your job is to make them look good. I had some, you could say, almost friends in Chicago, very nice guys, advertising men I used to work for. And one of them said to me, this is after about 15 years of work, he said, gee, Dick, you've been making us look good you've been making me look good, he said, this art director who ran the agency. You've been making me look good for 15 years. And I said, that's what the job is. You're to make the guy with the gold, or the client, you're to make them look good. You're servicing them. So I think the director's job is to follow the brief. Even if he's one of the ones who set the brief up. I mean, Chuck Jones sets up rules for himself, he always said, and he would just follow them. Very tight rules. And for instance, on the Panther, I think I said, we can have the Pink Panther with one prop. I think it was one prop. So if he was going to do Charlie Chaplin, we could have a hat, and then you have to use the tail as his cane. Maybe it was two props, I'm not sure, but we couldn't load it down with props. So you skinny everything down to whatever the brief is and stick right in there with the brief. That's my view. which leads to research. My mother being a commercial artist, she was and we're all commercial artists, right? Working in, if you're in the industry, you're a commercial artist. And you try to get your own, well, you can't help it. You can't help getting your own personality in the work if you do it well. Something happens. People could always tell my work, although it was in these different styles, because something happens in the execution of it. In the way you do it is you. The other thing with this research is that what I always do, and I do it with my own work, is because I saw my mother doing illustrations for magazines, and say she's got a woman driving an old Ford, out would come the file of old Fords or cars, 1934 and 6 or whatever it is. Out would come the costume file on women in motoring gear, and she'd get all this stuff, and then she'd do her, she had all these references. So I assumed when I went into the commercial world that everybody would do this. But no, they do it on movies a lot, but the artists tend not to. They're trying to be creative. And so when the rabbit, I just do a ton of research, and I get all these, I do no drawing. Even on my own stuff, I get as much reference as I can. And if I've got, depending on how much time you got, you may only have 2 days. But I'd paste them down on big boards like this. And I paste everything I can down. And so I was getting all the Tex Avery printouts and stuff out of ripping magazines. I tear books to pieces. I don't care about the book. I want it in the film. Stick them down. So I'd stick them down with magic tape. And I'd have all this stuff. And on the rabbit, I'm sticking everything down, Warner Brothers and this, that, and the other, and stick down for like a couple of months. Trying to get a handle on this thing. And I remember hearing the Disney producer on the phone to Hollywood, and he said, this guy Williams, you know, no, it's Richard, I'm Richard. Richard, you know, we don't know what to do about Richard. He's still he's still cutting up magazines. He hasn't done a single drawing. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. I know I tell him to draw, but he keeps sticking things down. So then this guy's on the firing line, his ass is, I've got to make him look good too. So I'm still sticking down. So what happened was, I remember I fell off the plane at ILM one time and just sat down and drew. Stephen they wanted to see their Baby Herman. I just drew Baby Herman. And he said, that's it! Well, the reason I just drew Elmer Fudd as a baby. And there was no problem. He said, well, you got that one. And then for the rabbit, I combined, the rabbit was Frankenstein. The head is a Tex Avery head, you know, with the hair, Bugs Bunny's cheeks, a standard cartoon thing. It's a shape like that. Brer Rabbit's feet, Goofy's pants, Porky Pig's bow tie, Mickey Mouse's yellow hands from 1936, whatever it was. I carefully only had one tooth. I made him a little more neurotic looking than but Tex Avery did that. The only original thing on this rabbit was the ears, which were scoop ears. And I think that was probably a steal from seeing Oswald the Rabbit from 1920 or something. Anyway, what did we get? As soon as the animators started drawing this stuff, do you think they'd draw a scoop ear? No, they drew Bugs Bunny's ears. Immediately. I said, for Christ's sake, the only original element in this whole Frankenstein item is the spoon ears. At least that's original. Maybe. The advantage of doing this research is when you do have to draw, thump, you're there. Because you've programmed yourself, however short or long time you've got. And the other thing about doing drawings right away, which is what everybody does, they just sit down and start doing, oh, I'm going to be creative. I'll explore this thing. You can't, you know, they always say kill your babies. It's very hard to kill your babies, especially if it's a nice one. And you've got all these fancy drawings. You start to fall in love with what you're doing. You want to save your work. It's a natural human thing. But if you're pasting down other people's work, you can be brutal and ruthless. And then cross things out, throw them out, tear them out, and get the selected ones. And you can also go up to the client, whoever it is, and say, which of these do you like? Which rabbit do you think? Oh, I don't know. That one. So you put a circle around it. You sure you like that? Yeah, I like that. I like the look of that. What about this one? No. So they can do that for you, and you can do it for yourself. You know? So research. Something directors don't do too much. There's a thing here that's between direction and animation. Both the animator should know it and the director should certainly know it. And that is that you're going to display things. You must display what's happening. You know, and in all the books they say, well, animators, they use profiles because they want to have a very clear silhouette. If I'm doing something here, writing on a piece of paper, you want to be able to shade it in and see it in silhouette so it instantly reads. And that becomes a cliche. You want to see it. You want to display it. You want to get it out where everybody can see it so that it's clear. For instance, what's this guy doing? Now what's this guy doing? And what on earth is he doing? You know, and you want to make sure that the colors are clear, you know, that it's not muddy, that hopefully you're using, you know, if you have a golden hand, a yellowy hand against a blue background, it's going to read. On the other hand, you want to make a thing clear, but supposing somebody, there's a little old lady, I've seen little old ladies in the store who have no money, and they've got their purse, and, you know, how are you going to get that in profile? So you might as well do it in the front and just have a blob. So you can still read it as long as the colors are clear. You know, so it doesn't have to be this profile thing. You might want to work to the camera, but we make things clear. We get it out there where we can display it. Now there's a thing about expression, which I see all the time violated in Hollywood animation. They change an expression while they're moving it, and you don't see the change. So as change is the most important thing we can get in change in movements, change in attitude, change. So if a guy's reading a book, this is a milk call example. If a guy's reading a book, there's his hands, he's reading this book. Here he is, where's his shoulders? He's reading a book, right? And he hears there's a sound, a scream or squeaking brakes, or hears this sound, and he goes here. He says, my God, is that a ghost or is it my child in trouble? You'd put the book down, I suppose, here, right, as he goes like this. This would be a key, wouldn't it? This is a storytelling drawing, a key. And this is a key. But let's draw an important thing. He goes, whoop. He hears this sound, and he turns, right? And let's make this one down lower, even better. So he's got more to change. He hears this noise, and he goes up into this. What? And then he turns, so that you read that change, the change. Or, well, anyway, I'll let you scribble that one down. Or we'll make the change at the other end. We could have him turning on this drawing. He turns and he gets to this end. A minute, let's get him to this end. Okay. And then, having gotten there, then you get the change. He said, good God, it could be my kid, or it could be a ghost, or whatever the thing is. So we want to display what's happening, and that's the way to do it. Don't have it change in the middle. Don't have it, he's down here. Don't have it go like that. Don't have it. You want to go noise, what? Or noise, what? So either at the beginning or the end. Read that change. A man hears a noise. It frightens him, and he swings round. Don't put his expression change during the move, where we can't see it. We'll put the expression change before the move, where we can see it. But to make it stronger, we need something to change from, something opposite to change to. Or change the expression at the end of his move, where we can see it. Either way, put the change where we can see it, not during a broad move. That's kind of an important acting thing. I see so many bad examples, so many examples of this that it's not done. They're trying to get the change in the middle and think you're going to see it, and you ain't going to see it.
The audience can only take in one thing at a time. The director and the actor should only do one thing at a time. And when we animate, we should only animate one thing at a time. The big mistake is to try to do everything at once. If you watch really good actors, you can see they only do one thing at a time. Now let's go back to our expression change on faces, which we've seen before, and see how effective it is when you do one thing at a time. It's fast, but you read it, you feel it. Watch good actors. Their expression will change one part at a time. Their eyes widen, nose might crinkle, the mouth drop. One thing follows another. Again, the disappointed man. First the eyes, then the mouth drops, the eyebrow reverses, his brow furrows, and lastly his chin goes in. Take a bit of fast action. If the poses are clear, you get instant read. With fast action, you really have to use clear silhouettes to see what's happening. These are the poses I did for a fight scene. Every pose is clear. I made the silhouettes as clear as I could so that we get instant read. When it's fully animated and it's much faster, it's still clear what's happening.
In designing characters, You want to get, everything is contrast, isn't it? You got big and little, fat and thin, tall and short, round and square, concave, convex. Everything in life is contrast, isn't it? You want to get contrast. You don't want everything to be the same. And can you imagine a play where all the characters look the same? That would be a statement on modern life, but it wouldn't be a very interesting play. So go for contrast. And with this, I use that in shapes. For instance, with the Roger Rabbit stuff. Roger Rabbit is a European clown, which is that shape. You know, they have the big feet and the bow tie and the pants. And then he's got this coming off the top. He's a white-faced European clown. He's that shape. Jessica is that shape. You're not going to get them mixed, even though he's red pants and she's red dress. The shapes are so different. In fact, I did him the color of the American flag, thinking everybody would like that, and they did. I don't know why I like it, but I like it. Right? Whatever. But let's keep it simple. And the baby is just one of these. You know, it's Elmer Fudd as a baby, a little thing like this, but it's Elmer, little round things. He's sitting in his leg, PP, you know, the little whatever. You're not going to get those shapes mixed up. The weasels were sort of that shape, you know, with a hat. They were already Disney weasels, but I tried to accentuate it even more. So go for contrasting shapes. And one of the wonderful things he did in The Lion King, I thought was a wonderful example of the different voices. You could never imagine that one voice was the same as it. You'd never get them confused. They had a wonderful separation of voices. You want to separate the shapes and characters. And since half of the visual is going to dominate, but half of the performance is the voice, so you want separate the voices. Tom and Jerry is a really good example. You know, you got a little guy. It's just big and little, basically, isn't it? It's a little mouse, however he is, and the other one's this proportion. Sylvester and Tweety, isn't it? Big and little, fat, thin. Most of the good vaudeville comics, I mean, Laurel and Hardy, fat, thin, round head, thin head, you know, however he was. Stan Laurel. You know, separate. Actually, it's good caricature. Got that? I'm surprised. So you get the theory, anyway, and people don't do that very much. So we're going to contrast voices, we're going to contrast sound. Right? So they're very contrasting. Everything must be very contrasting. We're getting the contrast of the concave to the convex, or the big to the small, and we have the contrast of the voices, and we have the contrast of the colors, and we have the contrast of the speeds. Put them all together, and you get a wonderful effect. People don't think of it. Okay?
However, whatever the design, the movement always dominates. This old lady looks like an anatomical road map, but she's really just a standard old Hollywood pear shape. Although she's a formula, her eccentricity comes from her action. The movement reveals her character.
Very important, hookups. Hookups. In live action, if you take these amazing Busby Berkeley extravaganzas with Fred Astaire or 100 women in feathers and diving into pools and stuff, they will do these long sustained scenes, and they'll have a dancer, Ann Miller or something, out in front doing these things, and they will hook up. They will come to the end of the scene and she'll go bump, and she'll get ready for this bump, and they'll cut to the next, almost sometimes quite a close similar angle. She'll go, and she'll complete the action, of course, bump on the next frame. You know, they'll obviously shoot it, bump, and then they'd intercut. So it works, and they'll slam a drum beat or orchestral chord on it, harsh sound, bump. And they'll change the entire background, you know, or the angle, and these things like Swing Time or Going Down to Rio or whatever it is, these musicals, especially the black and white ones and the Busby Berkeley ones, they hook up these enormously difficult scenes in a most brilliant way. And you see in animation, they don't hook it up at all. A guy gets a scene, the director gives the animator a scene, and the character's here, it's a rabbit or something, it's like this, and they'll cut to another angle when the rabbit's going with his arms out, and they cut to another shot where the rabbit's, you know, the rabbit's over here in an all too similar angle, and he's got, say it's his back or something. Dreadful cuts. Dreadful. Study good live action. Study Kurosawa. Perfect. He never makes any mistakes. You know, and he's got a lot more problems than we have. We should be able to hook up our actions. So the animator, when he comes to a scene of a character and the character's doing this and it's got to go to a close-up where the hands continue or something, he should at least relate to the next guy. He should give him his end drawings, and they should test it on test the cut, the join together. Or the director should be on the ball and get there to make sure these hookups work.
Very early on in the Silent Mickey Mouses, they discovered that if you took even a really simple face and altered the expression, the character appeared to think. Eric Larson, master animator and teacher, put it beautifully. Through a change of expression, the thought process was shown.
What animation has to have is a change of shape. I'll just do, we'll give him eyebrows. And it says that the subject gradually lowers his brow into a frown. So everything else on this drawing should be exactly the same. Trace back, or all that's moving. Let's make it curvy. Maybe it's a little better. That's a bit better. The subject lowered his brows into a frown, paused, and then lifted one brow. Okay, let's do that one. He lifts one brow. These are meant to be all exactly, except for the brow. Lifted one brow, and glance to the side. I'll just move the eyes over so that it change the expression equals the thought process is shown. You change, you get this change, and it shows the thought process. They all say the most exciting thing in animation is seeing a character thinking, isn't it? And you feel, is it Doug, you're saying, my God, goodness, I'm God. You actually control the thoughts of these squiggles, or whatever they are, images. And you have a character thinking. I mean, when I was working on the thief, who was a very slow-witted creature, and it was so stupid. You could see him thinking. It used to just kill me. But I would show him thinking very slowly. Let's put in a couple more drawings in here. Put one in here. Talking about passing position. Is there an interesting passing position to put in here? Let's just get the face here, which might be an anticipation, because he's saying, okay, the guy's going to frown. Well, what would the anticipation be? It's going to be the opposite. So what we do, oh sorry, the eyes are exactly the same. You just do the opposite of that. Right? You can now see where maybe we don't want all the stuff I'm going to put in, but I'm showing you how to put in more. Like the eyebrows go up, which is an anticipate, to the frown. Right? There's one more I can get in. Everything else the same. It would be, this is now down here in a frown, and it's going to go up. Well, what's the opposite? Obviously, why don't we just go down to the opposite, which strengthens that one. And then you just move the eyes over. Here's another one we can put in. Haha. Well, let's not. As you demonstrated, with the thing, he's looking from one place to another. There's probably going to be a blink in there. Now that's maybe putting too much in, see, isn't it? It starts to look maybe too mushy or corny. I would try it with this one as Eric, as I've illustrated Eric's thing, then put that one in and see if it made it better or cornier. And then do another test with that one in, see if it made it better or cornier. And then do another one with the blink. So whatever is happening, if that's corny or not, he's definitely thinking. What we might do, I'd start to mess with it if I were doing this. I'd put the blink in there. So you get all this different thinking with it. Change. It's all change. The eyes, like walks, tell us the story. When we look closely at someone, we watch their mouth,
but we read the eyes. Eyes are busy, rarely at rest, constantly changing shape.
Eyes. I'm not going to do anything much about eyes, except that we know there's the brain, however it is, and the eyes are the visible part of the brain, right? That's why everybody says it's all in the eyes. You've got to watch the eyes to see the soul or whatever it is. The eye is the brain. That's why we know, you try and look at each other now, you look away. It's embarrassing because it is the visible. It's just joined right there. So, and animators go on about eyes all the time. You have to have these eyes, you know, the Disney eyes, whatever it is. They all have to look like that, you know. And the eyes have it. Everybody looks at the eyes. There's supposed to be a thing. You know, they have theories. There's the face, and you watch that triangle, the mouth, the eyes. And they all have these wonderful theories, and they go on and on and on about eyes. And I say, I mean, I watch eyes, of course. We all watch eyes. All these guys with their theories about eyes, they get lost in their goddamn theories and forget to look. And you see it, hear it, I don't know, I've been mentioning this in these courses we've been doing, and now I'm sure I'm going to see a lot of it, I hope. When you're on the telephone, you see this. Yes, Henry. Yes, I know. The eyes are working, clicking around all over the place without blinking. As we think, as this thinking's going on, these things are wiggling around. So please animate the eyes. You know, and it's very different. People do it very differently.
Our eyes tell the story. We watch the eyes more than the mouth. When you're shutting the eyes, or blinking, move the pupil down with the lid, as if it's heavy, forcing it down. When the eye revolves, it's good to distend the pupil, to show the form. Even with a realistic image, distend the eyeball subtly. And again, very slightly. Here's a simple and useful blink formula. Going down, and coming back up. On twos, and on ones. If we put the blinks out of phase with each other, it appears drunk or stupid. Here's a variation. Let's take this simple bit of animation. The eyes say as much as the lips. The blinks of both the man and woman aren't complete. They only go part of the way down the eye.
I love you.
I love you.
I had a question about music and animating to music. And on these old things called bar sheets. And what the bar sheet, I don't know if they use them anymore. I stopped using them, but I used to use them. They're marvelous. And what it is, you've got all the frames exactly. If you take this, if I could lift it up, if I can push this sideways, the bar sheets fit the exposure sheets at Disney's perfectly. Absolutely brilliant. So the director used these bar sheets to indicate his action. You see, you could time stop, bump, bump, blah, 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 thud, bang, right? He would write the action. The dialogue could also be written down here. Go and never darken my door again. Could be filled in here. Then they would have for the composer, they would have the music. They'd have what do you call it? Music graph on it. And the guy could write his music, his main music line, or his melody, at least, along there, which would fit the things, see? So then if you were doing an elaborate piece of music, you could take the bar sheet, fit it on the side here, and write all the information down there. It fits exactly. So you've got the director's timing, and you've even got indications of the music if you want. It's a wonderful system. Of course, they then started printing this a different size, so that it didn't fit anymore on the side of the, and all this stuff fell apart, these systems, and I think they're going back together slowly. Sorry.
Related to the bar sheets, then, how did they treat it in Fantasia, where they had the music first and the action came?
Well, I know
second?
Art Babbitt. You'd do the music. Yeah, you just fit. You'd write your music out on there, and then the director would fit to the music. That could come first. I mean, obviously, the dialogue always comes first, right? But Babbitt, doing the mushroom dance, I know he had the full score in front of him. He, on a dare, decided to learn to play the piano. He thought he'd never be Paderewski, but of course, being Babbitt, he learned to play the piano. So he read the score, and he could select out bits. I don't think you need, I mean, I now read music and write music and stuff. I don't think you need to read the score. You just need to, you listen to it, doing, doing, boing, da, and if that's marked on the sheet, and you play your soundtrack over and over until you're bananas from it, doing, 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 blah, you're going to hit that.
About directing, we thought it would be a good idea to take our animated logo as an example. It's very complex, has 12 characters, all in different styles and colors, different proportions, all have to move and walk differently, all have to enter interestingly, one at a time, all have to march to the same beat, and they all have to end up on a cycle without being boring. And we had to do it so it's building up to a visual crescendo. As we have 12 of these characters coming in, we have to make the audience look just where we want them at the right time, so that the minute the interest is established on one, the other one's in, and then another one overlaps. But we see enough of each one as they all pile in. So we've got all these different characters, completely different styles, completely different proportions and everything, and they all have to have totally different personalities. The thing I animated was the sexy woman, and I thought, well, she's got to come in a completely different way. And then her hands flash up and the whole creature appears. And then she does her sexy walk across the screen, spinning around, and then we thought, oh, well, this guy who has to follow her, the grid man, just have his feet, have him stalk her, kind of. And then when he gets behind her, he grows into a Technicolor delight. Then in will come the swimmer following him. He has to get out of the imaginary pool. And then in comes the stick man, completely differently, and he's made out of black sticks. And then coming from the back, we thought, well, okay, let's have the cat come in from a door. He's all made out of rubber hose, no bones. The only one that comes in just from the side is this double bouncing fox. And then the sort of computer creature. It's our sort of token nod to the computer animators in a very small way. It was a hell of a job. It took 9 months to do 2 minutes. That's not too bad, because a commercial often takes 3 months. We did a lot of drawings, and most of it was on ones. But of course, when we got the creatures on the cycle, then it's just a repeated cycle. But the entrances were hard work, but a lot of fun.
Most of the things that we've covered, following the brief, separating the shapes, separating the colors, separating the voices, hookups, taking one thing at a time, these are really all different aspects of being clear. Whatever your idea is, you want to put it over so it's clear. In our final session, we're going to review everything that we've done, and we'll pull it all together.